Hi guys, this is Wave 618. It's the 12th of July 2018 and we've just gone 11:49 in the morning BST. Alright, so this is an update on Bitcoin. So first of all, what we're going to discuss in this video is we're going to break down what price is doing in the short term. So we're going to discuss what's going to happen here. We're going to discuss a few ways of gauging market sentiment. So if you know from watching my videos previously, I talk a lot about Elliott Wave. However, there's another very good way of forecasting, and that's using something called pitchforks, also referred to as median lines. So they're very useful. I have discussed them in the past, but my primary focus has been more on Elliott Wave, but the combination of the two is actually very effective, so it's worthwhile knowing about both, and for that reason I'm going to address median lines a lot more in this video, just so you can learn a bit more about those. But first of all, what we're going to do a quick recap about the main count that I've got. So going off previous videos, my count's been W, X, Y, X, Z. Basically I expect price to make a further low. Main reason being that I don't feel like the low is in. There's not been any real high volume to suggest that a low has been established yet. I find that it's been far too soon for a low to have formed. I had 25th of August as being the soonest possible time that Bitcoin could form a low. Keep in mind that's the soonest that it could form the low, and by no means the exact low, but it's certainly where I'll be looking to see whether price could be forming a low or not. So this is around 25th of August. Watching, if you've seen previous videos, that's based on the 0.236 fib extension looking at time. That's a 0.236 extension of the whole move up to $20,000. And if we look at the price level, so I was looking at it hitting around $4,300. That's based on my fib EMAs, and again discussed in previous videos, but also based on it being the 0.786 retracement of the main move up to $20,000, and 0.786 is a very common target. If we look at the history of Bitcoin retracements, it often hits around that level. So certainly this is a minimum target. I certainly expect 4,300 to get hit. That said, it could go lower. We'll have to reassess nearer the time, but that's the primary target. Now let's now discuss a bit about this short-term price action. So I had mentioned that price had retraced 0.236 of this high-low here. So it's come up to the 0.236 and found resistance. Now that's just using Fibonacci. My target was this 7,400 level, that being the 0.382. That's a more common retracement that we see. But I did mention, with the market being very weak, we could find price rollover at this 0.236 level. So that's certainly a possibility. That said, there's nothing to suggest price won't go up from here up to 0.382. The only thing that would suggest that that move was off the table was if these lows are breached, which at the moment there's no reason to suggest that. If we look on, let's just have a look on the hourly, we can see that price has retraced a significant amount, and it's doing it quite impulsively. So if we do a fib retracement of this, it's broken the 0.618, not quite reached the 0.786, but that said, it has kind of wicked here and formed a bit of a hammer candle, finding value at this 0.618 level. So it'll be interesting to see how price reacts to this level. But we may find price just coming down to this 0.786 and then going back up. Difficult to say, but what I'm saying is short term, price could certainly go back up and go up to this 7,400 level. And the only thing that would go against that is if price, comes down and breaks these lows here. So that's just a little bit looking at Fibonacci. Let's just zoom out 4-hourly chart. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to discuss a little bit about these pitchforks, or median lines as they're often referred to. So I'm going to have to come out of this, and if we first of all, we're going to look at our standard pitchfork. Now basically what a pitchfork is, there was a guy called Andrew, and that's why we often refer to pitchforks as Andrew's pitchforks, and he created these pitchforks to try and establish where the trading range would be once we've got the first few pivots in. So we find that, for example, the start of the trend being at the first major pivot, then we look at the next two pivots, which would be here and here, for example. So wherever you get 3 consecutive pivots on the same time frame, so it's important that we refer to the same time frame. We wouldn't include any old pivot. So for example, if you were to include this pivot, this pivot, this pivot, that would be your third pivot. But I'd rather look at these major pivots, so I'd look at that one, and then that one. There are 3 major pivots, and then we see, by plotting trend lines, which this pitchfork tool does for you, we'll see if price respects those trend lines, and yeah, it's basically a way of making sure that you're trading within those that trading range. So let's just plot it, and so you plot it, first point at the first pivot, second point at the second pivot, which is here, and then third one at the third pivot here. Now I've got a few extra lines on here. I'm just going to simplify it to your basic pitchfork. So with your basic pitchfork, you get just the 3 lines. So what you can see here, you get the line in the middle is referred to the median line, and this is your upper median line, and this is your lower median line. Now on top of that, you can adapt your tool, and you can add additional lines. So there's the 0.25, 0.5, 0.75 there, and the 2. These are the additional ones that I often use. So if I just put the 0.25 on, so you can see what that looks like. What it means is, if this is our median line, and this is our upper and lower median lines, this extra line, this green one here, is 25% of the way between the median line in the middle here and this outer median line. Yeah, so it's 25% of the distance. If we add on, let's take that one off and just put the 50 on. This line now is 50% of the way between that median line and the outer median line. Okay, so you can see the point there, I'm sure. And so the other important line is the 2. So if we put that on, you can see this lies outside of our median lines. And what this line is, it means that if we look at the distance between the median line and the upper median line, for example, this is double the distance. Yeah, and we refer to this as the limit line. Okay, so it's a very important line, that 2. Okay, so before I go on to how price reacts to these lines, I just want to discuss, there's a few modifications of pitchforks. Basically, there was a guy called Schiff, who was a student of Andrew, and decided that pitchforks were useful, but when the lines are plotted, they're actually quite steep. And he felt that if he modified it slightly and created what is called the Schiff pitchfork, which again, you plot just your 3 points as we did earlier. The only difference with this is where this median line starts. So if we just okay, just going back to the pitchfork so I can explain clearly where the origin starts on a pitchfork. So this is our pitchfork. Right, so the way it's plotted, let's take off these additional lines, that 2, we don't need that right now. So you plot your 3 points, 1, 2, 3, first 3 pivots. Then the tool, what it does, it plots it for you. It looks at it draws a line for all the pitchforks. It will do this. So it will draw a line connecting the second and third pivots, and it will find the halfway point between them. And that's where our median line, this one, which is the most important line, will go through. So it will go through this point, but it's where this median line starts which varies between the different pitchforks. So in your standard Andrews pitchfork, which is the one we have here, this median line, it starts where the first pivot is, and that's why you can see this median line starts where the first pivot is. Okay, so it starts there, then it goes through this halfway point between the second and third pivots, and then continues. Now if we just discuss the shifts modification of Andrews pitchfork, you'll be able to see now how it is slightly different. So you've got your first 3 points, you always plot them the same way, 3 major pivots, and again you've got your halfway point between the second and third pivot, which is here. That's where your median line will go through. But can you see the difference now? So the median line does not start here. That's where Andrews pitchfork would draw its pivot. If we were using Andrews pitchfork, the median line would start here and go through this point. So your trend lines would be in that trajectory. This is a much more shallow trajectory, as you can see, and the way this origin is calculated, if we draw a vertical line from the first pivot down to the level of the second pivot, and this line is 50%, so this is a 50%, it's halfway of the distance between the first and second pivots in the vertical plane. So that's where we start it. Alright, and what you get is this much more shallow pitchfork. Now there's no right or wrong pitchfork to use. You just got to decide, is the trend looking quite steep or not? If it's quite steep, I would rather use Andrews pitchfork. If it's more shallow, I would rather use Schiff's pitchfork. Now that said, there is an additional modification, and basically what happened is Schiff, as I say, created this modification of Andrews pitchfork, and then Andrew decided, you know what, I'm going to modify Schiff's pitchfork, and he went one step further, and we refer to this one as a modified Schiff. And again, it's all the same the way we plot it. First 3 pivots, again the median line goes through this middle point between the second and third pivots, but the origin is different again. And what it is, if we look at our vertical plane, again this is halfway along the distance between the first and second pivots in the vertical plane, but on top of that it's halfway of the distance between the first and second pivots in the horizontal plane also. So that's the only difference. If we draw a little box, so this is a box around the first and second pivots, you can see the origin is slap bang in the middle of this box, so it's halfway in the horizontal plane and the vertical plane, and basically again it just slightly changes the trajectory of the trend. Now there's no, as I say, there's no right or wrong which type of pivot pitchfork to use. It really depends on what suits the chart based on the gradient of the trend. So it's a little bit of trial and error, but that's the 3 main types. Generally this modified Schiff I don't use so much. So the 2 types I'll use is mainly Andrews pitchfork and Schiff's pitchfork. Alright, so that's just the theory. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how we can apply this to our charts, because there's a few rules that we use with pitchforks, which I'll try and explain as we go along. Now let's start with our normal Andrews pitchfork, and that's our high, low, high, and I did find some interesting findings in the price. I can't remember exactly which. Let's plot all the lines so we can see if any of them are getting hit. So let's just put on the 0.25, 0.5, 0.75 and the 2. These are the main lines that I look at. So basically what you can see here, price, so this was the high, this was the low, this was the next high. Price on this one, it only came down to the 50 and then it came back up. To be honest, I don't think this Andrew's Pitchfork, is that relevant here? It looks like a more shallow gradient, as you can see. So I'll be more inclined to look at Shift's Pitchfork. I've saved it down here, so I'll just use that. So this is Shift's Pitchfork now. Okay. So the settings that I've got, this is our median line. The parallel lines that connect the second and third pivots are referred to our upper median line and our lower median line. And this is the 2 here, as I discussed earlier, and this we refer to as our limit line. So that's our upper limit line, lower limit line. And then the others, anything extra on top of that is not as significant, but you do see price respecting these levels also. So as I say, I often use the 25, 50 and 75. So you'll often see price, for example, that's the 75 here, price rebounded off that. That's the 25, that's the 25, that's the 75. So you can see here the Shift Pitchfork is being respected. So let's just take a few lines off just to simplify, and I'll explain the rules of the Pitchfork now. So generally, once you've got your 3 pivots in, this is where you can start your Pitchfork. So what we expect from this point, we say that there's an 80% chance that price will hit this midline. So once you've got your 3 pivots in, 1, 2, 3, there's an 80% chance that price will hit here. As you can see, it hit it very nicely, then it rebounded, and then it's actually gone down to test the lower median line. Since then, it's rebounded off there, hit the upper median line, and then you can see there's a bit of a loss of momentum. It didn't make it to the median line again. That's telling you that there's a loss in sentiment. And what happens? You're now breaking out of your upper median line. When that happens, you can expect price to test the upper limit line. Now, once price breaks the upper limit line, that means there's been a change in trend. Okay, so that's why these limit lines are important. That's the 2. So when you set the settings of the tool, this is the 2 line, and when that gets broken, as I say, it tested it for a while and now it's moved away from it. This has now broken out, so I would stop using these trend lines at this point and I'd plot the lines slightly differently. So we can use a few different pivot lines now. So let's take that one off. So just showing you how it can be used on any 3 pivots really that are considered significant. So I've labeled this as the start of the main move. This was W and this was X. So let's use those 3 points. So if that's first pivot, second pivot, third pivot, again, you can see here from price didn't make it to the median. This is really a sign that we're losing bearish momentum at this stage, and what's happened is broke through the the upper line. It's gone to the limit line, and it took a while for this limit line to get broken, but eventually it's got broken. So again, I would stop using this setup. You could, however, plot, because it was difficult to say where X finished, whether it was here or here. So you could potentially plot it there, but then price isn't really respecting the lines here. So again, I wouldn't use that one so much. So, but the next one that I've been looking at is let me just have a look. So I believe it was this one here. So starting here, that low, and using that high there. Right. Make this a bit more clear. And you can see we used Fibonacci earlier, as discussed, to explain why price rebounded off this level. So you can see here, this is what we call a confluence of indicators. You got Fibonacci, from our high to our low, it hit the 23.6, okay, and it rebounded. But also, this is very significant, so it's another reason why price respected this level at around 6,800. So it's hit the median line, okay. So as I say, when you got your 3 pivots in, your 1, 2, 3 pivots, there's an 80% chance that price will make its way to this median line. It did so, and it's hovered around this level. If we put on a few extra lines, let's see if they're getting respected. So as I say, I like to use 50, 25, 75, put them on, and you can see often these levels will get hit. So here's the 25, it's gone back above the median line before coming back down, hitting the 50, broke below the 50 but not significantly, retested the median line. Now price is kind of in between. As I say, these smaller lines, these 25, 50, 75, they're not as significant. As you can see, they often get broken and price will still go back up. The idea behind using median lines is that you can say that once a line has been broken, price is likely to progress to the next line. That's the usefulness of these lines. However, with these additional lines, the 25, the 50, the 75, that doesn't apply so as well as using the main median lines, the lower median line, the upper median line, and the 2. These are the most significant lines to use. But what I can see here is price is looking like, if it does progress down to this next line, it will be forming new lows, and that is significant because obviously it's looking like it will continue down from here. So from a Pitchfork point of view, using median lines, if price does continue down from here, it's looking quite bearish. So I would be looking for a turnaround. As I say, there is a bit of a wick on this candle, making it look like a hammer candle and a possible reversal. There was so yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. On top of that, oh, I didn't mean to take that off. Let's make sure it's still recording. Yeah. Alright. So on top of that, let's just simplify it slightly. So we'll leave the 50 on, take off the 25 and 75. So we could find price testing this 50. This 50 is it's the next, apart from the upper median line, the lower median line, and the midline, and the 2, the next most significant line is this 50. So price could, as I said earlier, come up to around this 7,400 level and test this median line here. If we just draw our Fibonacci on here, so that should be from here. So this is our 23.6, that's our 38.2. It would cross the median line there. I'm struggling to see price going to there though, to be honest. Yeah, I've got a feeling price may roll over from here looking at this. I'm trying to find a confluence of Fibonacci and and the Pitchfork lines here. So you can see there's a confluence here at the 50 and the 50% median line. However, that's passed now in terms of time. There is the 38.2 and the 50 median line here. However, that's looking a bit too far away. It's getting a bit close to this Z, which means it wouldn't have much time to come down. It's looking like it may roll over here. That said, it may just come up to here and not actually make it to the 50. The 25 would be around this level. It may just come up to there. So that's a possibility also. Yeah, now there will be people who will think this is maybe an inverse head and shoulders, with this being a left shoulder, head, and then a right shoulder just about to form. But if you look at the volume profile, that doesn't really support an inverse head and shoulders. I mean, the volume on the left shoulder is higher than the head, so that kind of invalidates the inverse head and shoulders from that point of view. So I don't think that's going to play out. So it's at an interesting point. If it comes down lower, we look like we're going to head down lower and lower on our way to 4,300, especially if this 5,800 level gets broken. However, at the moment, the move up to 7,400, as I mentioned in my last video, has not been invalidated. So that trade, if anyone wants to take it, is still there. It's not been invalidated yet. So that's what I'll be looking at. I would want to see a little bit of volume come in, a little bit of an impulse, and a validated hammer candle before I could say that price is going to go back up to about 7,400. And if it comes down lower, my next target's 4,300. So yeah, I think I've summarized essentially what I want to say in this video. Main thing I wanted to talk on was these pitchforks. They are interesting, especially if we use a confluence between pitchforks and Fibonacci. Just gives you that additional bit of information. Like for example here, that's why price rebounded. It hit that line, it hit a Fibonacci level of 23.6, and then price has come down from there. So they are useful. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. I did actually, if we have a look at another very good example, let's have a look at gold. So I drew some lines on gold chart as well. If we look on the hourly, this has been following, I think this was a Schiff pitchfork, but this was just using the very first three pivots, so down here and up to here, and you can see since this was plotted, price hit the lower median line and then consolidated for a while and then tested the limit line. Then it, from the limit line, you can see a very nice bounce right back up to the median line, actually broke through it, but then there was clear weakness, because from the median line, if price doesn't go to the upper median line, that's a sign of weakness. And what happened? As price broke through the median line, it went all the way down and tested the limit line again. And then it's gone and tested the opposite limit line. So from there, it's come all the way back down. So it's really trading within this range. I think that was quite a nice example of how these pitchforks can be used. So that's just looking at gold there. Anyway guys, yeah, as I say, just wanted to touch on pitchforks really in this video. I will do a proper tutorial on it at some point, but I hope that helps. It's an extra bit of analysis you can use to your trading. Yeah, so let's see what happens in Bitcoin. It's getting interesting. Alright, and yeah, continue to show your support. It's been tremendous so far. I really appreciate it. Channel's slowly growing. Obviously I hadn't posted a few videos for quite a while, so the channel's not, the channel didn't grow as fast as it could have, but I'm hoping to build up that momentum again, and I very much enjoy creating the videos for you. So alright, keep an eye out for further videos. Take care guys.